Peace to the family. What's happening? So, it's my first video blog. It's not live. I ain't got around to that part yet. But we do what we can do. I wanted to speak on some things today about black consciousness and being woke. And the stereotypes about it, the misunderstandings, the confusions, the overdone and all that extra stuff, right? So that's my notification. I hate when something important ends up getting washed out, played down, joked around about so much that a lot of people don't sit and reflect and think about it. And I think that's done on purpose by the powers that be. Oftentimes, you know, they wash it out. They discredit what you're saying so quickly and so fast. They did that to Sabi. They do that to a lot of black history. They do it to a lot of new understandings in regards to politics and racism. They wash it out and discredit it so fast with all these studies and yada 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 that a lot of people don't even take into consideration like they should. And it's important. Okay, we'll let that go. But it's the same concept when you say woke. You know, you hear woke and you start to roll your eyes. You know what I'm saying? I'll start off with, for me, the definitions, right? Woke, we know what woke means, right? So just apply woke to the level of understanding, you know, to where when you didn't understand, you were asleep, okay? And when you understood, you're woke. And so that's why there's so many levels to it, because you're continually not understanding something and then understanding something, right? But you have to understand that there is stuff that you don't understand, right? For you to admit that you are asleep, or that you were asleep. And then you have to come to some type of realization. Is there something monumental in your life that you know now that you didn't know the first 20 or 30 or 25 years of your life? Is this something that you can point out right now and it applies pretty much to everybody you know? At that point, you woke. At that point, you're in the 10, 15, 5, 2% that knows this. Especially in your community, which is where the numbers even get even smaller. At that point, you're woke. So that's all woke is. Same thing with consciousness. Consciousness is understanding. Aware, actually. To be conscious is to be aware. So to be aware of your surroundings and what's going on to you, with inside you, around you, that's all consciousness is. So when people downplay being conscious, maybe they're downplaying the people that they've talked to that claim they're conscious, you know. But you can't really downplay being conscious, not as a level-headed human being, you know, because all it is a level of understanding, a level of awareness that everybody has to go through, and everybody's at their own different levels of awareness of what's going on in their surroundings, you know. And you can be conscious just walking down the street in the aisleway or something. You can be aware of your surroundings, right? You can be, somebody can run up on you with a gun and you never know, or you can be aware, as the next person could be aware, and you can't even get across the street without me taking off running or understanding what the hell's going on. Because those are, one person's aware and one's not. One's conscious of their surroundings and what's going on, and what's not. So just apply that to the bigger picture, to life, to understanding, to understanding all the stuff we don't know. You know, to have to understand the stars. You know what I'm saying? The stars are confusing to a lot of people. There's millions of them. What the hell are they? They just gas balls? Why? Where do they come from? You know what I'm saying? What do they do? What is the purpose? Why did God make a gas ball 100 billion miles away? This is what most people's thinking, right? So they don't have the understanding. So to become conscious is to become more aware of what the hell's going on around you, inside of you, under you. You know what I'm saying? So that's what being conscious is. Okay? Now, when applied, and that can be applied to anything and everybody. So let's bring it down. Now that we understand the definition, let's bring it down more specifically, because to us, okay? Because we got to apply the information to us directly in our lives and our situations. That's important. That's what all this is about, for real. So, what's being woke? I wish I had an open line here where I could ask. And I will do one with the open line, but that way I can ask, what are y'all's impressions of being woke? When you see a woke person, what do you think? I bet you don't go engage in a nigga. I wouldn't. I ain't gonna lie. I'd be like, oh shit. He about to tell us some stuff that we done heard already. Some complaints about 60s and racism and what they did to us, right? And I'm over it. Just like you, right? So that's the typical woke person. But the woke, let's just get into it. I don't want to go that direction. I want to tell you what the levels of it is and why. Okay? And you'll start to see it. Once you realize it, you'll start to see it. It's not as rare as you think once you start to look around. You know, so the first step is health consciousness. You can't be woke. You can be unhealthy and health conscious. Okay? Not for long. But, you know, say you're unhealthy. People are unhealthy, don't understand what they need to understand for 20, 30, 40 years. Then you come into this information. Now, you got 20, 30, 40 years of recovery to do. So you're still unhealthy. You might be still overweight. You might still have whatever problems you have been diagnosed by the doctor, yada yada, but now you're conscious, so you can be unhealthy and health conscious. A lot of people are, but not for long, because once you become health conscious, you learn how to fix your health issues. You'll learn that you even have health issues that you didn't even know you had. You know what I'm saying? And the importance of being health conscious is, people don't think that don't understand how health affects your brain, how the health in your finger, how being a healthy body, how exercising, how breathing the right air, how what you brushing your teeth with, the gargling, what you gargling your mouth with, what you washing your body with, the tap water that you're drinking, the vibrations that you get from other people, and the infrared lights that I'm getting from this computer screen, they all affect me different ways. Because we're all made of the same stuff by a molecular level. We'll get to that. But it all affects me in different ways. We are super beings on this planet, and that we can handle that. I can eat some sugar, which is poison. We'll get to that. But my body will turn up, recoup, fix it, do what it got to do. Right? That's everything around us. Okay? But you got to understand, what if every single day, if every single minute, your body didn't have to do that? Didn't have to recover, recoup, help out, knock out some bullshit that you didn't try to poison us, knock out the infrared lights, knock out the all the different stuff, the gases, the certain sun rays, and the stuff flying through the air, and the cell phone signals going right through your goddamn brain, and all this type of stuff, right? You got to understand that if your body didn't have to recover from that every day, every minute, every time you ate, every time you walked around, guess what? You live to be 800 years old. You'd be like the people in the Bible that didn't have to do with this stuff. It starts to make sense, right? Okay? You live longer, you will be healthier, and blah, blah, blah. We'll get to the live longer stuff. Some people don't want to live longer. Some people don't necessarily want to be healthier. Some people want to be happier, live a happier life, a better quality level of life. And that's what I'm big on. But that goes here. And that's a physical thing too. So everything that affects you affects your head, affects your mind. Right? So how does it affect your mind? As us, black melanated people, it affects us dramatically. Because not only do you take stuff out that we're supposed to have, to help us, but you put stuff in that keeps us down. And when your body's recouping every day, how possibly could your body do new and better stuff every day? You can't do both. Right? So you recouping and your gain is very little for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years for a lot of people. Okay? If those same amount of time was not done, it's not spent as much as fighting back and recovering and blocking stuff and yada 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 and becoming stronger than it was yesterday, right? For 40 years, where would you be at right now? What would you be doing? Where would you be? What would be your thought process? It's almost unimaginable. It's almost unimaginable. You'd be a lot smarter. You'd be a lot richer. You move a lot faster. You breathe. You would know more. Your memory, your reading, it will affect everything. Your intake of information, your assimilation of information, your release of bullshit information, you will naturally feel better and stronger just from your brain. Just from your brain, right? That's why it's the first step. That's why it's the first step. Because you are being controlled in many ways by the system, by the man, by the, don't let me get too racist on here, by the elite, right? None of them were black. None of them are even melanated. Okay? You be controlled, and it's in many ways. You know, if I had to control somebody who was naturally had bigger features, who naturally jumped higher, who was stronger, who was always historically smarter and healthier, what would I do? I do a lot of things, and we'll get into that. But one thing I would do, I would feed him some stuff that kept him down. I would feed Superman kryptonite every morning. And in any way I can get it, especially over several thousand years, it gets detailed. It gets in your deodorant. They put certain shit in your deodorant, certain shit in your toothpaste, your toothbrush, your hair grease. The tap water spray that washes your face every day. That you're feeding, that you're drinking your kids every day. They put stuff in there and it keeps you in the situation you're in. You can't expect to be smarter and figure things out and assimilate information and pick all these people you wondering why you don't like to read and all you like to do is listen to mumble rap, because the stuff is put into you, and it's put into you to get worse and worse and worse, and it's kept us down. When we was dancing and doing swing jive in the 50s and 60s, we could have been 7 feet tall. This is just far-fetched, but it's what we could have done over the last several thousand years. We can all be 7 feet tall. We can all be living to be 200, 125 or so years old. And we can all be healthy for the first 100 at least of our life. And we all would be inventors and polymaths, Renaissance people. You know, we don't have experts. We'll get in that later. But you don't have experts in astrology and biology and etc. etc. Maybe you do. Maybe you got extra. But the common level of knowledge of that and how it applies to them specifically is known. That's what we're trying to get to. You know, I'm going to tell you to run by the next couple steps of consciousness. Real quick. Just to show you how health plays a part into it. World history of money, labor, and racism. That's the next step. Understanding that. And we'll get to that quickly. But then after that is the American miseducation. We'll get into that. Then there's religion, the importance of Africa, the importance of Egypt, and then relearning math, science, biology, astrology. In particularly, but relearning everything you were mistaught growing up. You know, you graduated with false information. So in reality, you're still at a toddler level of understanding, right? And you might be even worse because now you got false information embedded in your brain. So this is LeBron down 4 games with all his team hurt. This is the mountain that we have to overcome. You know what I'm saying? And then after you relearn and reteach yourself, then you really start to become in the consciousness. You really start to understand. Even though these are all levels of consciousness. You know what I'm saying? Niggas been woke. Them niggas that walk up to you and tell you about this and this in your ear, they woke. I don't even disagree with them. You niggas is woke. But But you're only on the first stage. And I'm probably on the first stage with you. I just don't talk about it as much. Right? Alright. So we're going to get into the health. So understand what the health does for you and your mentality. And your mental wise and physical wise. Your health is the first thing. The first step. Nobody realizes it's your first step to being woke, to being conscious. I'm going to stop overusing the word woke. I never liked it, but I got to go with what a lot of people are saying. I prefer black consciousness because it's woke, but it's also pertaining to us on a more specific level. Okay? World history is next step. Once you understand your health consciousness, you're going to end up trying to go vegan, vegetarian, make your steps. The ultimate food diet is raw alkaline vegan. Look it up. That is what, especially for us. Now, I can't speak for everybody. Some people, the only reason we started eating meat at these levels is because some people were born and raised and are from the mountains where they don't have grass and fruit. All they got is animals to kill. So I'm not going to say it's not good for them. It's not best for us and the way our bodies are made. Right? So that's my thing. Once we get on that level and we start working toward that, I'm not raw vegan alkaline. And I'm far from it. Right? But I understand that is the ideal. Raw, vegan, alkaline, drink nothing but spring water. Or juiced versions of whatever you eat. That's the ideal, and is what is optimal for our body. That's how we were going to live longer. That's how we will take most advantages of the of things around us. Because we're not hurting our own body and keeping it from accepting information and all the other stuff that is given to us. Our workouts, we take most effective our workouts and everything. Okay, so health conscious. Let me move on because I'm deep in world history. Specifically, when it comes to money, labor, and racism, it's not what we understand now is from what the 1800s. Let's go back 1400s. Go back to Columbus and our Atlantic slave trade. That's pretty much what we know. And when you look at something that has been happening over 20,000 years, right? And you look at 400 years of it. What is your level of understanding? Is my question. What is our level of understanding as far as when I do this, I'm fucking with the camera, trying to see if it's straight on. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, what's our level of understanding at this level? When there's so much that we don't understand, that we don't look into, so we have to make our decisions and try to figure things out based off this small amount. It's like trying to invest in a company. When I'm investing in a stock market, and maybe a penny stock is what I do, and I invest in a company, but I don't have all their information. I only get 1/4 of their information as opposed to their all 4 quarters, or I only get one part of their sheet for their investors or whatever it may be. I don't get the whole thing, and I go hard on it, trying to figure it out and make a good understanding off the information that I got. But the more information you have, especially pertinent information, the better decision you can make. And most likely it'll be a different decision. And once you understand that, you're like, okay, fill me in. Where do I go? Fill me in, right? So it's so, and this is not the most important part, but it's the longest part, because you have to re-educate yourself 12 years worth of history on just money, labor, and racism. You have to find out, when you hear the government is in debt, you got to understand that. Not just on a monetary, economic, but as a world history that pertains to black people. You need to know When they say U.S. is in debt, you have to know what that means, right? You have to know that why and what is a birth certificate and a marriage certificate. Look this stuff up. America is in debt because every dollar is just a piece of paper. There's no exchange for no gold or nothing like that. We're just selling and buying stuff based off paper, right? And the paper is a note saying we owe you. I ain't got it, but we owe you. And that's why America's in debt. We are America, and every dollar we spend puts America more in debt because we don't have no gold. I don't have no gold in my bank account when I buy this thing for $1. I'm just saying I owe you, right? So that's why America's in debt, and that's why you have birth certificates, marriage certificates, things of that nature. Those are just, instead of dollars that represent money or gold, those are certificates that represent people. You know what I'm saying? So America's in debt. Hey, we got to start selling our people. So tell you what, I'm going to give you a certificate of this person's birth, and you give me so much amount of money. So that's what they do. That's what they had to do. They've been doing it since the 40s. I want you to look it up. I'm not going to get into detail about that. But you got to understand that. These are the basics of stuff, right? And then money, and then the labor. Same type of deal. You need to understand how countries generate or create it. Not just generate their wealth, but have been created by labor and by forced labor. So we know the slavery part, right? I'm not going to get into it. 300 years of free labor, right? They're not making no less money now than they were in the slavery days. They found a new form of slavery. And the best part is you cool with it. That's the new form of slavery. You cool with the new form of slavery. So that's what makes the slavery the best part. See, slavery would still exist right now. Black people, let me tell you a secret. Y'all didn't do nothing to save yourself from slavery. You would still be in slavery today if the North and the South wasn't fighting over that cotton money. If you ever read Abraham Lincoln's pre-primary, his primary speech before he got elected, he said he had no intentions on freeing slaves. He just needs to make the economy even between the North and the South. You can't have the South making millions and millions of dollars off of free labor and the North is struggling, trying to find some money somewhere, trying to work for it or hire somebody or manufacture it, yada yada. You can't have that split and be the same country. So that's what they did. They had to get rid of slavery. And to do that, we say, okay, we get rid of physical slavery and give everybody slaves, right? Because in slavery, what would they give you? They give you free food, they give you free shelter, right? You know what I'm saying? They protect you to a level that you ain't gonna have no other people's slave masters breaking into your slave quarters and killing you without the slave master saying, hold up, them are my damn slaves, right? So you got a sense of security too. You got police officers, you got people protecting you. That's the same thing they're doing now, but instead of whipping you for it, we're gonna whip you and give you the free stuff and make the cotton. No, we're not gonna whip you. I'm gonna give you stuff that you need to live, and I'm gonna make it so that's the only way that you can live. The only way you can get your food is through the slave master. And the only way I give it out is if you come work for me. I ain't got to whip nobody. It's still slavery. You just don't understand. There's a level of understanding there. And you don't understand what your life could be and should be, which I should have spoke on health. Right now we are the, what we call them, the house niggas. The house niggas, they were dressed in white, clean, they ate good, you know what I'm saying? They spoke better. And so when the field nigga run up and say, hey, we getting out of here, let's go. You a slave. She like, slave? I'm doing good. This is where I'm supposed to be in life. You know what I mean? So they half of them didn't even leave. They good. That's us with the good job right now. I'm good. I got the good job. I got the car to drive to work. I'm there 8 to 10 hours a day, whatever. I do what I got to do. They pay for my car to get home. You know what I'm saying? They pay for my room and board. You know what I'm saying? So I can sleep the night and make it back to the slave ship in the morning. It's a level of consciousness there that you have to understand as far as the history of money and the history of labor. Okay? And then the history of racism. I'll say this. Don't act like racism is not new. Racism has always existed. When I'm talking about not new. The racism has always existed. Since the first signs of any different races on this earth, there's been racism. Okay? Slavery trades, there's been slavery for thousands and thousands of years. There has been people wiping out other countries, other races, not liking other people for thousands and thousands of years. All this conquering that the Romans did, that your culture here in America turns into heroism by being a conqueror. You are taking over and killing mass people and taking over their land. That's what they did, and that's what their heroes did. That's what Napoleon Bonaparte did. You know what I'm saying? That's what the Vikings did. And that's what the Romans did. That's what all of them did. That's what they do. You know? They take over. That's what Italy did. That's what Columbus was set forth to do. Columbus was not an explorer. He didn't touch land and travel. He didn't even go 100 miles off the coast of any of the lands that he landed. He never went north of the Bahamas and never went 100 miles west of where he landed to explore nothing. He came for slaves. He came to take over some people. He claimed to see if there was some more melanated people in land that he could take over, and that's exactly what he did. He came over. His very first trip, he brought native South Americans back to Italy as captives. So the people that was funding his voyage showed him, could look at it and see what he wanted to do it. They gave him the okay. He went back over there and murdered and raped and took over land and etc. etc. Right? We ain't gonna get into that, but you gotta understand that racism has always happened, has always been there. And there's a reason why I'll get to that, because there are different races, duh. That's I'm gonna get on that. But there's different races, so you can't, racism exists. You have to live with it. You have to live peaceful with it. You have to live as a peaceful understanding of racism, because people have been killing other people for racism the whole time. And like I said, we got melanin in us. We're a little bit smarter. You know what I'm saying? We take a little bit more from the rays. You know what I'm saying? The cock's a little bit bigger. The features a little bit bigger. We jump a little bit higher. And low key, we think faster and read faster and assimilate information more. But y'all think it's a difference between physical and mental, even though it's both physics. I look away when I'm thinking. It's both physics, right? So it's no different. Everything that you are better physically, you're better mentally. It's just harder to control you physically. It's harder to control you physically. It's hard to keep you from doing push-ups in your house. They do it. Don't get me wrong. They got you done. But it's easier to feed you poison water and to talk you into eating meat and to give you soul food, which is slavery food, and to make you love that and to keep you down mentally. So we're hopping around like giants, you know what I'm saying? Not saying LeBron's an idiot, but LeBron's a great gladiator of an athlete in this world, and he could be way smarter. He could be that much, as much as he is better than us athletic wise, he could be that much intelligent wise, as far as mathematically, scientifically, astrology, philosophy, financially. He could be all that. But they're not holding them down as much physically as they are mentally, as with all of us. They trying to pop you some pills, make your shit shrivel up. They ain't been able to do that yet. But they have made you think, oh, roll with that. That's your highlight, and you don't really have nothing else. Or everything else is not as much when it's the exact same. The gap is the same across the board. So what would you do if you had that situation and you're in the cold and you're hungry and you have to do something about this and save your race, See, racism was right off the bat. As soon as they came out here and my family's all white and they look out and they see sunlight and grass, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? You know, they came down from the mountains and it's all these black people. They instantly like, I mean, the first one or two might try to be friends, you know, Plato and them that sat down in Egypt and understood and learned through the, you know, but the others, Napoleon and Alexandria and the rest of them, we conquering. We the first ones that found gunpowder from China. When China was popping fireworks and trying to, you know what I'm saying, meditate with the gunpowder, we turned it into guns. Now we can take over the earth. The first person with guns take over the earth. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. The first person with guns took over the earth and ran with it. Okay? So you got to understand that. And you got to understand the money situation. You got to understand that the original Jews, Israel is 100 miles from Egypt. They all African, even though white people in the Alexandria days came and took and killed them all and took it over and renamed it to Africa, renamed it to Egypt, reset the borders and separated, you know, wherever that they wanted to separate. But before then, it was all the same, and it was all black people, you know, in that area. It's near the equator. It's hot. We do much better there. We're from there. All our bones are there. You know what I'm saying? So we're from there. But you look at the history, you look at Gaddafi, you look at the old president of Egypt, you know, the old president of a lot of those countries, and a lot of people today, they'll tell you, the blacks left. Israel was all black at one point, and the Jews were all black at one point in that area. Once they came back white, once the people with the gunpowder came and took over and set up shop, then they created money. Then they set it up banks. It all starts with the white Jews, not to be racist, just to get you to understand. You know, I have to say the white Jews. Some people say the elite, which I don't really like, or the newer Jews. I like to deal with the newer Jews. You know, so the newer Jews set up banks and they became rich by taking over all the countries in the world and setting up banks there, and now you can't purchase nothing or borrow nothing or start nothing without borrowing money from them, and they give it back, and that's including entire countries. So that's the Federal Reserve is the Jewish bank, and America is America, and all the people in it are the people that's borrowing money, right? So you got a couple families that own these banks worldwide, and they're taking all the money in, okay, from all the different countries. And the couple countries that don't do it, that's the countries that's beefing, right? That's the countries that we have issues with, because since we doing it, we're allies with all the other people doing it and the people taking over. We cool. We slave to them, because if you owe somebody something, you go on some favors. We in debt something trillion, right? We owe these Jewish banks some favors before they say, hey, I want all trillion right now. They could do that. And then what? We go back, we plummet. We will plummet. They've stopped making money. They cut off the money and say money is worth nothing. You can't even pay me back in these damn pieces of paper. I want my gold back. I want the gold you said that you had and you was going to pay me. They could do that. So they're not going to do that because they like the system. They like making their money. They like the control. And say you rich, you owe me a couple $100. You keep the couple $100. Do me a couple favors. I've done it before. That's all they're doing to us. So we're America, we're doing favors for Israel, for the white Jews. So they can be surrounded by enemies as they are for 200 years, and no one can touch them because they got people out here that owe them money doing favors. America, come get them. You know, or they run into some countries who say, no, we don't want your Jewish banks. We don't want to borrow money. We're sitting on gold. We're going to make our own money. We're going to make it out of gold maybe. So chill. Guess what happens? Instantly there's a war against them. Jews, Israel, and the people who owe Israel money, which is America and some of these other countries, the UK, France, and whatever. They owe Israel money, and so they're like, let's find a way to start a war against these countries. That's why they killed Gaddafi. That's why they took out Cuba. That's why they don't like China. That's why they any other country. That's why they killed Hitler. See, they lie to you about Hitler through school. Hitler wasn't racist. Hitler didn't have blue eyes, and didn't say everybody should have blue eyes for to live. Or he would have killed himself and his own top officials. He never said that. They lied to you. And he was never racist. He said, look it up, that the blacks are the original Jews, and that the new Jews are trying to get over. You have to find translations of his speeches. But he said if Germany would have accepted $60 billion this year, next year, and the year before that, guess what they would be saying? America and Israel and everybody else would say, Germany's not that bad of a country. That's what the beef is about. That's why they got to take them out. And every time that happens with Gaddafi, with whoever, they got to take them out, because that's the control that the Israelite family, the white Israelite families, the elite Israelite families have over the world, and that they have over America, which they have over the world. You got to understand this system. This is stuff you have to understand, because you are, and compared to the rest of the world, you the house nigga. Black Americans are the house niggas. Not only are they satisfied with being where they at because they got a little shelter, little clothes, little food, they don't even realize that they slaves for real. They don't really realize what's going on out in the yard. So they can't come. They're not going to come help. They don't want to come help. They cool where they at. Right? And the people in the yard, that's the people in Africa, our own people, or Africa, or the slave, or the people out in the field getting whipped. They're 3 times more colonized than you. They're 3 times more indoctrinated. They're 3 times fed the wrong food. They're a lot less free, and they have a lot less means than us. But we the insides, you know. And I'm just saying, hey, if the house slaves just get free, we can come back with a little bit of bread and save everybody. But they don't understand. They cool where they at. We cool where we at. Which I should have said back in the health conscious, where could you be? Freedom. What's freedom? Why can't you travel the world? Money or time? See, this is the 2 things that they get you on, the money and the time. The money and the time, they restrict your money and your time, they can make it to where they know and predict where you're going to go, where you're going to be, where you're going to live, what you're going to do for the rest of your life. That way they can get an amount about how much you're going to make and pay us and for taxes and fees and tickets and etc. And we're going to put that total amount on this birth certificate and say, hey, we ain't got the gold we owe you, but give us some more of these Federal Reserve dollars, and I'm going to give you this certificate for this person here who's going to pay this back over his lifetime. You got to understand. But in reality, we should all have our own business. There's enough people and enough money on this earth for all African Americans to have their own business. Successful businesses. Don't let them fool you. Family businesses. We can be working 4 hours a day. We could be doing our yoga and meditation and etc. in the mornings. We can be working from home. We can be schooling from home. We can be cooking our own food and not taking the money and then giving the money right back to them. I'm only on number 2. I'm going to try to speed through this. Where we at? We're almost at 40 minutes. I'm going to wrap it up at an hour, bet. We're on 2 of like 8. So I got to pick it up. But all of this does fall under the next step, though. American miseducation. You've been miseducated. Okay? So, and we understand that. But we don't understand to a full extent. If I'm talking about you've been miseducated about your food, the milk, the meat, Hitler, never been told about your own stuff. Lying by omission, maybe. But there's so much they never told you about, period. That's pertinent to you and your life and you, your quality of living and your finances. Pertinent to you. Never told you about. They give you all this other stuff, right? So that's pretty much the next step is the miseducation, the American miseducation. And they give an example. There's a video out that shows how they educate people in China, and they try to claim it as being bad. Well, let me tell you about education. Education is most beneficial for you from your parents. Your parents Not even your parents, your ancestors, people that are like you that understand what's going on, right? Because, like I said, racism does exist. Racism is a thing, not a concept, right? So different races need different educations because you assimilate information differently, because different things are good for you than other races. It's a biological thing. That's why understanding the health part was first, right? It's a biological thing. So now you got to understand that the education you're getting is construed because it's not from your people. Even if they tried right, it would be off, right? You know, how you gonna tell a descendant of Africa what kind of foods to eat? And you're from Germany. Your people are from Norway. You're never gonna tell somebody to go eat kamut. You don't know what kamut is. You just learned it in school. You don't know what it does. Your African people have been eating kamut. They've been eating amaranth. They've been eating stuff for thousands of years that these people ain't never heard of. Scientists, that nutritionists, food specialists, blah, 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 have never heard of. They only got a 50, 100, maybe a couple hundred years worth of experience in dealing with it. Where your own people have been telling you for thousands of years, eat that. We've been eating that. We've been good. Right? So you got to understand that. You got to understand the miseducation that you've had. And the miseducation goes to a level to where they make you think that you need to rely on specialists. I talked about this earlier. Specialists. We all should be specialists to an extent to what pertains to us. You know, somebody got a doctorate in, say, health, or a doctorate in dentistry, or a doctorate in astrology, or a doctorate in physics. 5% of that pertains to you. Less than that. 1% of what they learn directly pertains to you. That 1 to 5% is what you need to learn. It's what you need to know. That's really all you need to know, unless it interests you more. But you can be a so-called specialist in all these realms. You need to learn that 1 to 5% of the doctorate program that pertains to you in biology and math and physiology and history and etc. and etc. and etc. You know, that's but they didn't teach you like that. So you're low on all that. You maybe got one specialty. You're a customer service specialist, or you really loved history, and so they got you on that, and all the rest of these, health, the understanding of the stars, calculating math, reading books, and how to learn and how to breathe, and etc. 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 You got to rely on specialists who don't have your best interest at heart, who don't have your ancestors or your histories of knowledge, any of their knowledge, or basically using their studies and their science from a whole different type of person, from a whole different area of the world, that is not going to be most beneficial to you. Can I leave it at that for now? You've been miseducated, and so after the miseducation, after 12 between I won't even say 12. Because you've been miseducated by your parents because they was miseducated. So 20 to 30 years of miseducation, what do? You have to take it like cocaine, man. You have to take the pertinent information, ball it up into a high, concentrated ball of information, X out all the extra BS, and take that mug and try to catch up 30, 40 years. Right? I need to work on looking at the camera instead of myself, huh? But stuff's in the way. Next, I got 15 minutes. Let me run through the next. Religion, which I'm glad. I want to keep religion short anyway. People's real iffy ticky about religion, right? But religion didn't tell you that meat was poison. Religion didn't tell you, especially all meat. They picked some meats. Some religions pick some meats, but religion didn't tell you that all meat was poison. And as a living thing, you shouldn't be eating nothing dead. Only scavengers eat something dead. Not even real carnivores eat dead meat. 90% of the time they eat it while it's living or while it's freshly dead, to where it's all of the insides are still living parts. The DNA has not died off yet. The blood is still red and moving. That's what carnivore. That's how carnivores eat. Only scavengers, birds that pick certain pieces of pecks and yada yada yada, that don't eat much at all, are scavengers, and their bodies are made for that. Ours are not. We're doing some weird stuff. We're not scavengers. We're the only non-scavengers that eat dead meat. We don't eat live meat. And let me tell you one thing: when you cut off a piece of a tree, the tree is live. Live and electric. You cutting a tree does not kill it at all. It keeps it from getting more. You know, it's like pulling the plug on it. You're still alive, but if you need some more food, you're going to run out of problems because you're not connected to your root. Nobody said eat dead food, dead fruit. You know, you're going to wait till it rots and dies off, then try to eat it. You're not. You're going to eat live fruit. You're a live being. You need electrolytes. You're an electric being. You need electricity in your body without shocking yourself and killing yourself. Okay? But my point is, that's just one thing that no religion speak on. And there's a lot of information. Once you start becoming conscious, you start realizing there's a lot of information that religion left out that will be helpful to you. That was my opening to religion. This is everything I need to know, but there's information that's pertinent, that would have saved millions of lives and my soul and everything else, but it wasn't even spoke on. Right? So then you got to look into it. Where'd you get your religion from? You got to start asking questions. You got to sit down in a quiet room by your damn self, so you won't be embarrassed, so your Christian people ain't on your head, so your woke people ain't on your head. You got to start asking questions. And maybe even sit in front of the computer and Google some of the shit a little bit. Throw it on YouTube a little bit. Right? Because there's questions that... I understand there's questions we don't know. And I know we don't know nothing. We only know what we're around. You got to get past that. My brother's heavy on that. We don't know nothing. And, you know, we're all... whatever. But there's got to be something that you got to be able to set your standards on. And so with religion, I don't mind people being religious. I understand the need for it, to answer questions of the unknown. But you got to sit back and you got to answer the questions. A lot of questions and a lot of sciences and a lot of studies that you thought were unknown are actually known and have answers to. Religion's no different. Life's no different. You just need to come across the information, right? So you want to ask, let me tell you some questions you want to ask before I even get deep into it. I got 10 minutes. You want to ask, for me, why wasn't this stuff information? Why wasn't pertinent information put in? How did the Bible get to me? How did Christianity get to me? Because I realized it was given to me through my slave masters, just as my last name was. You know, you should be, you know, you can't throw your last name away and then hold on to the Bible. You got it from the same people. You can't throw your food away, your chitterlings and your all your slave food that's kept you stupid, and then turn around and keep the religion and the Bible that the same people gave you. Because when they brought you over here, they didn't let you keep your religion. They didn't let you keep your culture. They didn't let you keep your beliefs. They gave you theirs. That's something you got to understand. Christianity for you started with slavery. Look at Christianity before it was here. Where would it go? If we got it from the people that came from UK, it was up in the UK area at some point. How did it get up there? It was made in that area. It got up there from Egypt. From North Africa. It came around and the back around, and then they pulled us over and got it. The problem is, when you start looking at the bigger picture at other parts of the world in the history, now look at the history of Arabic. It came through us this way. It came from Egypt as well, and came throughout the Middle East and through Northern Africa, and then crossed over years later after Christianity was over there and crossed over and made it to us. So we came up with 50 years later, we came and we ran into Islam. even though they both been around thousands of years before we ran into it, right? So you also realize there's a lot of religions that spawn out of this same area from Egypt over thousands of years. They all have similar stories. They all get around to you at different times. So I'm not saying throw the Bible out the book quite yet. I'm just saying you need to look and find out where the first Bible was written. It was in Egypt. You need to find out where the first Quran was written. It was in Egypt. You need to look up and see when. You need to look up, and that's the next one, the importance of Africa, and the next one's after that's the importance of Egypt. See, the importance of Africa is after you lose your religion, after you realize when the book was written. You can find out exactly when the book was written, by who, right, and when. You can find out all the other books that were omitted out of the Bible and why. See, the Bible's not one book. It's a collection of books over time. Somebody had to take all this information, look at it, throw some of it out, keep some of it in, change some of the words to use it in the way that they felt it needed to be used for their people, good or bad. Right? And who did that? Some white folks who came down and took over Egypt and took over all the information. Learned from them, then killed them, then took their information and wrote these books. Okay, that's why, Socrates and yada yada yada, they have all these know thyself and that food is our medicine quotes. All this stuff is already written on the walls in the pyramids, and we lucky they wrote the stuff on the pyramids, because they took everything and burned everything down and claimed it for themselves and restructured it and rewrote it for what they wanted to do. Let that food be thy medicine and know thyself and stuff. They get a lot of credit for coming up with that type of stuff. All of it's already written down. Thousands, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of years before they claimed they said it, it was already written down. Same thing with the Bible. The 10 Commandments is part of 42 laws, commandments that's already in Egypt, where the book was started. They just pulled the ones that they wanted. It's a great example of what they did to the whole book, right? To all of these religious books. Right? It's going to be mind blown once you look this up, right? So all the religious books, they pull all this information out of the same stuff, and luckily they put on the walls because they burned everything down. Alexandria burned everything down. Bonaparte burned everything down. They brought Da Vinci and everybody else over there to learn a lot of stuff, to repaint a lot of the black faces, burn everything they got down, take all the records and leave and start a whole new, and rename it Egypt. Start a whole new country there. And that's how Egypt is now today, who's just as lost as we are, because they burnt down and took everything. All they got is these, you can walk outside the hood in Egypt and look up and see this big ass pyramid that they roped off and you can't touch. And you're like, oh my Jesus, the biggest structure and one of the biggest structures in the world. It's definitely the heaviest. Definitely the most mysterious. And that just means because the stuff happened to it and there's a lot of information about it that we can't understand. That's what makes it mysterious, right? So you got to look into that. How can you? How can you not? How can you be a believer in your religion or whatever religion you are, Christianity, Islam, Buddhist, whatever, divisions of any of those, and Catholic or whatever, and you're like, okay, so all these religions came from the same area. They all have a lot of similar stories to what was originally there. And this stuff existed a long time before this. And there's a lot of things that don't make sense. They have changed as far as the times and the dates and what happens and the translations and yada, yada, yada. We got to deal through this other nonsense, right? But we have to ask this question. But before all that and where all this comes from, it's right there. Don't even look up the basement of the Vatican. There's miles and miles of bookshelf space in the basement of the Vatican that nobody can touch. It's been there for thousands of years, and guess what? It's the stuff that they stole, among other things. There's stuff about World War I. There's a lot of books. There's a lot of incriminating information down there, but a lot of the stuff they stole from Egypt long back then has been there the whole time. Untouchable. You can't touch the pyramids. You can't get in the Vatican. That's the cover up. I'll get to that at some other time. I got 5 minutes, so I'm gonna run through it real quick. Okay, so now you got your history, you got your religion, you got to reevaluate your religion, because when you come down to it and you start doing your research, you find out that all these religions have been tampered with, have been changed to separate us, and that's exactly what it does. Religion worked perfectly. You cannot get a black Islam and a black Christian and a black Hebrew Israelite and a black whatever, different denominations, to work together at the level they need to work to overcome their oppression. You can't. Right? So religion worked perfectly. Religion is just a separation of the same information. They couldn't even come up with some new stuff on their own. They had to take it and change it. Right? So that's what religion does. So once you get that mind opening and you're like, okay, now what? Okay, so my religion's fake. You tell me my religion's fake and I gotta do this, but you can't. It's like the food. You can't go vegan without replacing it. You're gonna be hungry and you're gonna be skinny. It's a replacement thing. So you pull out. So you can't just say, "Oh, I don't believe this shit no more." What do you believe? You need a higher level understanding to get rid of your old understanding, right? That's where the importance of Egypt comes in at. And the new findings and stuff like that, because 100 years ago you might not have had this information, but we're in the age of enlightenment, right? So you look into Egypt, okay, well, what is it then? Well, what does the original text say? There's got to be, at some point, got to be one of your questions. Okay, so all this stuff is copied from this, and all these religions started. So what was before that? What was the religion before that? The truth is, technically, it wasn't no religion. Religion is based off belief. See, before that, they didn't necessarily believe. They understood. There was a knowing, an understanding. That's where Kemetic science comes in. All these answers that you can't quite get a grasp on in religion, you can get a grasp on when you study science. Right? So that's where Kemetic science comes in. I'm not going to scare you with that, but understanding what was written down before then is what you need to do. You carrying around the Bible, you need to carry around the stuff that they wrote down. And I'll give you some reference points in the last 3 minutes before we go out. They call it the Book of the Dead. It's part of the cover-up, right? But really, it's the translations of the hieroglyphs and what it really says. And it doesn't even translate to the Book of the Dead. It actually translates to the Book of the Awakening after you die, in those rough words. So to scare people off, they just call it the Book of the Dead. But really, it's the book of the transitioning into the awakening. If they would have named it correctly, you'd have been looking at it a little bit more. You know, and they told you they were hieroglyphs. So an owl means a picture of an owl, but that's not true. The owl means te or he or whatever. You know, and the owl also has a symbol for 3. It's in a very complicated language. You can look at the hieroglyphs and read it if you understand it. If you go off the Rosetta Stone and you do the translation, you can look at the hieroglyphs and you can read it. You can make out the meanings and understandings. And it's been done on several levels. And people don't understand that yet. Right? So, understand that. You got to open your mind up, look past what you have been taught for the first 40 years. And don't say, well, I'm going to look past everything I've been taught except this, or except that, or except religion, or except science, or except this. Open it up. Get an understanding. Answer your own questions. Questions that you asked when you were little that you never got an answer to. Can God pick up a boulder? Can God make a boulder that he can't pick up? Right? Why did God put us here with a instinct to sin and expect us to not be sinful? He's going to kill us. You know, you overlook those, or you make these rational explanations. You're all loving God, but then when you read the Bible, he's not all loving. So there's a disconnect here. There's a disconnect by what you're being told versus what you're reading versus where all this shit comes from in the first place. I got a minute left. I'm going to wrap it up. Okay, so once you do that, you got to look into it. And the book of the transitioning, they got the Dead Sea Scrolls. I know you heard of that. Valley of the Kings. There's books on that. There were walls. There were hieroglyphs written in all the valleys of the kings. All this stuff is translated. Just look into it. Read it yourself. See if you can see if you feel the same way as us when you see that these religions were kind of plagiarized. I gotta go. Peace to the family. We'll do number 2 later.